just want to say thank you to Glenn.
We're in.
Thanks, Glenn.
Glenn.
Pleasure. Happy birthday.
It's not my birthday, Glenn. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, okay,
Merry Christmas.
Stop giving a present.
It's bribing, isn't it? Look, I've got a bribe.
I did raise on Alex's show today the idea of Christmas being early. Does that mean the goodwill to all sort of men, women and anyone is about as well? So, for example, would Plaid send all the other people Christmas cards and say how wonderful it has been to work with them all year? Do you think Parliament would do that?
I want this election to be about debate. I want people to air their views. We're not all going to agree, are we? No. Doesn't mean you have to get nasty about it, does it? Exactly. Even if you speak strongly on a subject, it doesn't have to be nasty. No. You know, I know all the, in the Vale of Clwyd, Gavin, I don't think I've met him.
He's the Lib Dem, isn't he?
But,
finding it hard to contact the Lib Dems, to be fair.
I've met Peter Dane from the Brexit Party a couple of times on the campaign trail. Chris, I've met enough times, and even James Davis, I've met a few times. So, it's not a personal thing. Doesn't mean I agree with their opinion, does it?
My chair's going down. I can feel myself slowly going. Have you noticed? No, I'm off.
We have got one chair out. We've got one chair, and it does that. And by the time you're typing or something, and the chair's going down, and you're actually put your hands above you.
I'm glad Andrew's got on, otherwise I'd feel victimised.
Yeah. I'll remember this now, which chair it is.
We've actually got you in a particular chair, so it's fair for everyone.
Okay.
We have, yes.
And the camera's there, so they can see you, and it's all right. So, to start off, let's hear about yourself and why you think you're the best person in this election for that area that you're going in.
Let me start off with about myself. Yeah, I'm Glenn Swingler, age 56, 2 grown-up children, 4 small grandchildren. I work as an adult mental health care support worker as a full-time job. I'm a Denbighshire County Councillor representing Upper Denby and Henthlan. I am a town councillor in Denby. I'm a school governor. I'm on the board of Denby Youth Project. What else comes? I'm a member of Plaid Cymru, obviously, and I'm a member of Plaid Cymru's National Council.
How long have you been a member of Plaid Cymru?
About 5 years.
Right, okay. And how long have you been in Wales? Because you moved from...
I was born in Nottingham. I moved from Nottingham to Kent when I was 11 years old, and I came up to North Wales when I was 22 or 23.
You've been here a long time then?
I've been here a couple of years. Just I've missed my age, so you can work that one out. So I've been here a while. Met my wife in Denby, where the children were born as well, and all my grandchildren were born in Denby. We did go and live in Spain for 8 years when my children were 11 and 10. My son was 11, my daughter was 10, and we came back when my daughter was just turning 8, just about to turn 18. Right. So, we were there, just over 8 years, I think we were actually there. But
what attracted you to Plaid?
It's a strange one, because I like so many people that are born in England and a non-Welsh speaker. How would I fit in with Plaid Cymru? It's only for people that speak Welsh and live in Pwllheli. I sort of I looked at manifestos and everything for all the parties, because I thought I need to get political a bit more, because I was annoyed with so much that was going on around me. And I came up with Plaid Cymru. They held my beliefs. And I was a bit shocked, so I sent off some emails to Plaid Cymru, and at the time a young lady that was standing for Plaid in the Vale of Clwyd in the 2015 election as well. I spoke to them, and I was so welcomed in. We'd love to have you. Of course, you share the same beliefs that we do, and it's kind of snowballed from them, really. And then, of course, in 2017, I stood for Plaid Cymru in the local county council elections, took a seat in Upper Denby. That was only by 17 votes, but I took it from, previously it had been 2 Labour members in Upper Denby. One though did give it all up, so I was standing against a new councillor there, or potential new councillor, and I got in. And again, that is again all snowballed even further over that, because now I see so much of what goes on in society and all the things that are wrong, and trying to make that difference. Talking to your colleague in the sound room there, talking about some things are so annoying because it seems to take so long to get certain things done. But at the same time, those individuals that you help, I've done a lot with the homeless, as you know, Andrea, and when somebody that you've been helping finds a new permanent home, that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
When you do get that sort of result, then it's all worthwhile.
It is. I know, because I'm not involved in council or anything like that, or a political representative, but I do my stuff as an activist. Yeah. And when you do help people, you do feel, you feel that you've helped somebody, and if it's one person, all the hard work that you put in with campaigning and supporting different groups and things like that, you do feel that it is worthwhile, and it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's not just about the individual, it's about yourself, because that makes you feel better about yourself as well, because of what's going on in society. You feel disempowered.
Yeah. I won't mention any names, but I was having a conversation with one person, and I said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And when that person said, well, there's nothing we can do about it, I thought, well, let's see what we can do about it.
There's always a way around.
That's the, and it is about then trying to make that impact and try and make those differences to your communities and to the people that live in your communities. It's so multifaceted, though. What is important to one person may not be as important to the next. So you might be talking about educational health, or social care. People that are interested in education, or those that are either in education or got children going through the education system quite often. Those that want social care are the ones with elderly relatives, or, that sort of thing.
There's so many things going on.
So everybody says which is the most important.
But that's what I was going to say with policy-wise. I mean, I have got my video out of who I'm voting for and why, and I've put my top 3 reasons. Okay. It's really difficult to choose, isn't it? Because there's so many reasons. But what would your priority be from Plaid's policies to implement in Westminster, through Westminster?
For Plaid Cymru, it's very obvious. Our position here is that we need Wales' voice heard. We are one of the 4. Sorry, I'm banging on the table.
You know this,
yes,
Glenn.
I do.
How many times have you been on the show?
Put your hands behind your back or fold your arms.
It's about having Wales' voice heard in Westminster. We will fight for Wales and not fight for Westminster. We need to make sure that the services that we get in Wales are properly funded, that we start getting listened to and stop being ignored. How many times during this election campaign so far, by listening to mainstream media, have you heard Wales even mentioned? It's such a rarity. I mean, the SNP, because of their strength in numbers and the potential that they're going to be even stronger, they're getting much more news stories about them on mainstream media. We need to make sure that Wales gets that say.
So the Lib Dems are getting a lot of exposure as well.
Just going back to you.
Yeah.
Your experiences as a family man and all the rest, and I suppose the question I've got is, how does that prepare you for sort of talking to business leaders about some of the major business incentives that are going on in the area? Are you linked into business yourself?
I can't say I'm particularly linked into business. I suppose I've different jobs I've had over the years. I've been retail manager, and I've I've worked. I've been a postman. I've been a bingo caller. You know, I've had a number of jobs.
My husband was a bingo caller.
Was he?
Yes.
I've never been a bingo caller.
Was he as good as me?
I wouldn't know. I would say he wasn't very good because he was quite young and probably didn't take it
But
seriously.
I'm trying to find out how does that equip you to be an MP for this area? Because we've got such a massive range of... And employment is so important for people.
It is. Yeah, employment's massive. And most of those, well, a great deal of it, are the small, medium enterprises, the SMEs. These are people that are struggling every day with paying their rent, their rates, their staff, and they're trying to get through, you know, the last 9 years of austerity, where people have got less and less, you know, affordable... disposable income is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, they've got less and less disposable income, and they're turning to the internet to buy things that are cheaper. Somehow we've got to find a way that we can encourage people to start up their own businesses and keep them in business.
So one of Plaid's pledges that I've been looking at is around small business.
Yeah.
So what's Plaid's policy then around small business?
Before we go into details on all these things, this is a Westminster election. Now, I can give you Plaid Cymru's policies on housing, education, the NHS, agriculture, social care. These are all devolved issues that are governed purely by Cardiff Bay and the Senedd. That's where those policies are made. And it's the same with most businesses.
And
now, when
we've got some great policies in Wales.
We've got good policies. We've got some good policies in Wales, certainly better than England in a lot of cases. Yeah. But until we sort out the funding that we get, we are only ever going to be able to get so far, aren't we? So we've had 20 years of devolution. I mean, the Barnett formula was only supposed to be a temporary thing. And yet here we are 20 years down the line. The
Barnett formula, can you tell our
Barnett
listeners
formula
about
is
that?
the block grant that the Welsh Government get from Westminster. And it's based on what money is spent on England. We don't get money in Wales based on need. We get based on what has been spent in England, you know, and so there's a little, you know, kickback.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the 80% of Wales money comes from, the Barnett formula.
And it hasn't worked for Wales.
Hasn't worked for Wales.
All, because one thing that we can agree on, I think, is that there's lots of great policy in Wales, but implementing policy comes alongside having the correct funding to actually implement policy properly. But I think because you are representing Plaid, Glenn, and because Plaid have got policies, like you're saying, until you've got enough power and enough finance, you can't necessarily fully implement them. But, you know, you do need to talk about what them policies are, and, you know, because that gives people the decision of, OK, yeah, that speaks for me. You know, so we were talking about the small businesses for Wales.
Well, let's go through some of the policies.
Yeah, go through.
Do you want to go on environment, social care, NHS, childcare, housing?
Just before we go on,
poverty.
Just before we go on to those,
there are a number of policies.
I'd just be interested in what that means for the constituents of that area. For example, there's housing development that's been kicked back a few times over Imelodin, and the chances are that will go to central government and then be overturned against the wishes of the people and against these other things locally. Right. There's numerous things happened that centrally they've taken a view on that's been consistently wrong locally, or people would say it's against what people want locally. How are you going to affect all of that?
Right. Again, housing is a devolved matter. That is down to Welsh Government. Whoever's in charge in Welsh Government. Okay, for 20 years it's been Labour, but it might not be the next time. And you know, who knows who will win any given election? But housing is devolved. Housing is also a council responsibility.
Yes.
Now, my arguments have always been for the need for more social housing. We are desperate for social housing. Right to Buy got rid of all our social housing 30-40% of those houses are now in the hands of private landlords renting them out.
I just thought it'd be higher.
Which is, but even so, it's still a large number. Now, I have no problem with people owning their own homes. I'm good on them. But we need to get people on the housing ladder, and but we also need, so we need affordable housing, but we also need to change the way we describe affordable, because affordable housing can actually be more expensive than the open market because it's based on a bigger area. So you could something that's affordable can actually cost you more than the house next door that's on the open market. So we need a lot more social housing. Secure housing for everybody must be an essential part of our society. If you haven't got a secure place to live, you then have trouble deciding on where you might want to work. You might have trouble then on having to move your children's schools all the time.
Glenn, to be fair, how would Plaid implement this in an ideal world?
Well, first thing we do is give 30% rate relief for rent relief for those in the poorest end of society.
Right, okay. So that's one of the clauses within a housing policy.
I mean, we do need a massive affordable housing programme. Yeah. Again, that we need to look at how you describe affordable, and to be fair, I think that's something that the government are looking at already. So how you define affordable, because what's affordable for one might not be affordable to another. We've got to make sure that people can get on the housing ladder.
Very subjective.
But social housing for me is the first thing. I'm very pleased that we've managed to get, or we're going through all the planning process at the moment, 22 council houses in Denby, in my ward, so that we can get some of these families that are, absolutely desperate. I'm dealing with a young lady.
Glenn, the new Housing Act for Wales actually says now that they've scrapped the right to buy and
there's
things
no right to buy in Wales anymore.
And also that we can start building new council housing, can't we? So thankfully we can get some new council housing.
Well, we could build council houses before, but it's just only now that we're starting to do them.
The national policy was that there was no council houses being built, wasn't it? Yeah. In the national policy from the 1980s when Thatcher brought the Housing Act, in that act there was you can't build any more council housing. It was all social housing from the Clwyd and Allen and these organisations. But the 30% deduction for rent, is that in social housing? How would that affect people? Well, because private rent to me is actually a massive problem. And I think they're charging too much rent. So how would that...
I think they're charging too much rent. I think that the housing market is completely...
It's
out of control.
Is it? Yeah,
it's 30% rent relief for anybody that's struggling to pay the rent.
In any sort of housing.
We can't have people struggling to pay their rent because if you're struggling to pay your rent and then and you have to pay your rent, then you're struggling then for everything else, which is why we've got more usage of food banks. We've had, that just keeps going up and up because people are paying the rent, they then can't afford to buy food. We have 200,000 children in Wales living in poverty. That, in the 21st century, I don't care what anybody else wants to say, that is absolutely unacceptable.
Wrong. So Plaid in Westminster then, so we've got 4 Plaid MPs currently, so although they're not sitting MPs at the minute because we're in an election period, there's 4, isn't there?
In Wales
4
you have
MPs.
There are 40 MPs in Wales. There are 40.
AMs, you mean?
No.
MPs?
MPs? In Westminster.
How many Plaid ones?
You've got 4 Plaid in Westminster, haven't you?
You've lost me now because I'm just...
Sorry.
I'm even doubting myself now.
I thought there was 4 Plaid MPs in West...
There's 4 MEPs.
So how many MPs
40.
in Westminster?
40.
You've got 40?
No, we haven't. We've got 4.
You've got
That's
4.
what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about MPs in general.
No, MPs.
No, MPs in Westminster.
This is the problem.
But no, I'm going to ask then, sorry.
Yeah.
So Plaid, the influence for Plaid in Westminster, so although Plaid are against the Westminster, having any say in Wales, I can understand Plaid's stance. Doesn't necessarily, just because you understand something, but in Westminster itself, how will Plaid MPs, or how do Plaid MPs work with other parties then to try and get influence more for Wales?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to. The first thing is you stand up and you talk about Wales, and you mention Wales over and over again, and you don't let anybody forget that Wales exists. We are not just some backwater somewhere to the left.
But trying to work with other parties
that's the first
to put motions
through. We
through.
are likely to be, in this election, going to have a hung parliament. Yeah, that's...
I agree,
I think that's the outcome. And then any Plaid Cymru MPs in Westminster will then be able to have a say in the makeup of any government. And of course, then that's when we then want the parties that we work with to think about Wales and put Wales in, front and centre as part of that government.
So are you saying that it doesn't matter which government it is, Plaid will negotiate with that particular...
No.
Okay.
Up to now, for example, certainly, we refuse to work with the Conservatives totally. They go against all our ethos. We, in the Senate, we have had a thing with Labour in the past. We don't now.
Twice there's been a coalition government.
We want to get our policies in. Our policies don't fit in with the Conservatives, so that rules them out. I don't trust. I don't think this is funny enough. Again, a conversation is, people want trust in their politicians, don't they? And they've lost all trust in their politicians. What you've got to do here is you've got to make sure that you're not. I'm one of these people. I've got my opinions, and they're very strong opinions. And I know what policies I want.
We've learned that over the weeks.
And I know what policies I want, and I know what I want for Wales. And if somebody isn't going to do that, they'll say, OK, we'll give you more money for housing, but we're going to get rid of devolution. No chance.
I think that's it. Do you think the Conservatives would want to get rid of devolution altogether now? I mean, we are 20 years down the road in Wales.
I think we've seen through Brexit. I think we've seen through Brexit just how much devolution in Wales is being ignored. It's been the Senate has been bypassed every single time. I don't think there's any question whatsoever that there are those in Westminster that would like to get rid of devolution. Absolutely.
Okay, just moving on a little.
Okay.
Brexit. How did Wales vote in Brexit overall?
It voted to leave.
And what's your personal opinion of that?
My personal opinion is that we should have voted to remain. And my personal opinion now is that if we had another referendum, there would be an overwhelming vote to remain in Wales.
And what's Plaid's policy?
Remain. Our policy is to go back, is to have a people's vote. Whichever...
So why...
Whatever deal, whoever comes back with whatever this week's deal is, that seems to change fundamentally every week, then we will take it back to the people's vote. We're not revoke Article 50. We want to take this back to the people, and take it back to the people, and we would openly campaign to remain.
Would you vote to remain, or would you just vote on the New Deal?
Well,
or would you want to take it... Well,
May's deal, Johnson's deal...
Any deal at the time. Any deal at the time. Or would you want to actually go against the will of the people?
It's only against the will of the people if people vote again to leave, isn't it?
But we've had a vote. Why should we have many votes on the same thing?
OK, well, we're in our third general election in 4 years. Democracy is fluid. As and when things change, as and when views change, we have elections.
Traditionally, in other countries, referendums cause, splits in the vote. And if the vote is too close, then that country will say, right, we've got to do this again. And I think we need to. I think we need to put a vote back to the people. But from Plaid's point of view, one thing that I don't particularly like is the revoke Article 50 altogether.
That's not our policy.
No, but you're with the Lib Dems, aren't you? You're sort of
we're not
in
with the Lib
line.
Dems.
What's happening? Okay, so explain quickly then. What's going on with Lib Dems and Plaid?
This is what happens with the Lib Dems. We're both Remain parties, and the Lib Dems have stood aside in 7 seats in Wales to allow Plaid Cymru a better chance of winning in those seats, and we've stood aside in 3, I think it is.
I thought it was the other way around.
No. So, we're
but why though? If you're not for revoking?
Yeah, but we're all for remaining in the EU. And what we do not want is a fudged Boris Johnson deal going through.
Okay.
That's bad for Wales.
So that's been prevented in Westminster for the last 3 years.
But if he comes back with a majority,
he's not going to come back with a majority.
He may do. I mean, this is all conjecture about what can happen, what can't. And I suppose why I ask that question is we've had views come through, and if elected, very simple question: are you prepared to represent the constituents, your constituents? And not just your party or personal views. How do you go and find out what your constituents want?
How do you find out what you will?
And would you back them?
Communication-free zone these days. People could email. They can go on Facebook or Twitter. You get out and about, and you see people. Being a county councillor, a town councillor. And.
But would you go against what they wanted?
When people vote in an election, and if they vote for Glenn Swingler, and I get elected, there is no doubt about where I stand on the big key issues. That is what they will be voting for. They will be voting for social policies. They will be voting to remain in the
socialist
EU.
Policies.
Socialist and social.
Communist.
No. I think also if you talk communism and communist, that's what does that even mean these days? That it's people use it.
Well,
people throw these things.
It's a common name that people would have. And
I think some people get confused about the political spectrum, and I remember when we first were doing this show. I won't take up too much time because it's yours.
Carry on.
But on the political spectrum, and something that we tried to sort of talk about early on in this the Community Voice programme, is that there is a political spectrum, but in the UK you don't really get communism. You get socialism, and you get social democracy, but there's a communist party, and they're further left, but on the whole, politically, we've got nobody that actually, would go into the communist area of politics.
No.
So, but I think there's sometimes a big confusion between socialism and communism.
Let's take that back just a little bit. Certainly as a county councillor and a town councillor, the amount of difficulties I see every day, the amount of problems I see. There's a young lady at the moment who lives in a caravan with no heating, and you can imagine what that's like at this time of year, and it's cold, and she needs somewhere to live.
In a caravan.
She needs somewhere to live. Yeah, you see things like that. You see working families who are contacting me to say, I've got myself in debt with this. What route do I take now? And these are working families. It's where both parents are out at work, and people are just struggling with everyday life at the moment, and we've got to find a way that we help them, that we direct money to the right places, because if we carry on as we are now, society is going to collapse. We're going to have more than the two-tier system that we've got now. We're going to have the uber rich and those who are just...
I think we're already reaching...
How are you going to do that? How's Plaid Cymru...
By getting more funding.
By getting more funding. Is that the only... Where's the money going to come from?
From Westminster. Because we live at the moment... as much as I don't like it, we live in the moment in a United Kingdom with a Westminster government which has got 650 MPs, 533 of which represent England. It's an England Parliament. Because if Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland all ganged up together and put all their votes together, they're still massively short of the numbers they would need.
But that's the population. That's the
population of the UK.
Yeah.
This is why we believe in independence for Wales. So that Wales can then
you'd
direct
become independent. You'd go away from Westminster, and all the money that you generated would stay in Wales.
Yes.
Within Wales.
And could you afford to do that?
Yes.
That's a big question that's always asked, isn't it? So what's the economic...
So let's take a couple of just very straightforward. There's something like a £15 billion gap at the moment between the taxes that we take in and the money that we spend on our services, yeah? Now, that's a significant amount of money for a country like Wales. But it's also based on UK fiscal policies, on UK monetary policies. We could develop our own monetary policies. But let's take two simple things. Water. We export water. We get nothing for it.
We get a lot of water.
We've got a lot of water and we export a lot of water. And if we started charging for that water, that would bring £6 billion into the economy.
So the charges would not be for the Welsh citizens then? Or would you
the Welsh government?
Would you scrap the charges for Welsh?
Well, that's something
for water.
So there's free water.
Yes.
No, it would be nationalised to Wales. Yeah, and Wales would charge for
and
the
then
water.
to export into England and Scotland.
Well, we have got a not-for-profit organisation that's managing it very well at present. I must say.
Yeah, but Severn Trent own a lot of things as well. But also, Wales is the 5th largest exporter of electricity in the entire world. That is money. That is something that we get no money for either. And we export that and we get nothing for it.
Don't we get it back through Westminster?
No.
I'm just wondering how the process works, because although we produce money at the minute, that money that's produced goes to Westminster and then they decide.
It does with water and electricity.
They decide where the money then gets redistributed, don't they?
We look at our exports, for example, which is why for me remaining in the EU is so important. Is the amount of trade in Wales that is through the EU. It's over 60% of all our exports go to the EU. Now, somebody is bound to ask, but if we leave the EU, then we can trade with the rest of the world. Our second, might be third now, I didn't check before I came out, second or third largest trading partner for Wales is the USA. We already trade with the rest of the world. Just so happens Germany is our biggest trade partner. So, it's...
Are you talking about Wales or UK?
Wales. I'm talking about Wales.
Wales specifically. What we've got, we trade.
Like with Brexit, we've said, let's talk... If we are talking about Wales...
Because I think
Wales
that goes across the UK as well, doesn't it?
Wales is a net beneficiary of £245 million per year. That's £245 million more than we pay into the EU, Wales gets back.
Okay, you're talking as though...
Not £350 million for the NHS, that's nonsense, it does not mean
that's actually different to Wales producing that money, isn't it? That's money coming from the EU into Wales.
Coming from the EU.
So,
it's a lot more than that, but the
benefit
that this is just cash terms is £245 million.
Can I just follow that bit up a second? You speak as though Wales owns these things, but in fact it's lots of private companies that own these commodities. Lots of electric boards, we have French companies, German companies, lots of privatisation, the wind farms and all the rest. In fact, Wales doesn't own these. All it can do is tax these companies, can't it?
Well, you could tax them, or you can renationalise.
Or you could but could you afford? Would you want to go and renationalise?
We've got a commission in process at the moment, set up by Plaid Cymru, with economists and universities and all sorts of different people, looking at how independence in Wales would work. down to fine detail.
I think that's what we need.
Yeah, it is.
I think people need that, so that they understand
that's going to take until
happen.
the end of next year to complete. But but it is an in-depth look at how the economy in Wales works and how we can make that better and how we could make independence work.
So that would be really interesting for people of Wales to look at. I think it's a big thing because Plaid's main policy is around independence as a whole. But going back to the Westminster thing, for now, Plaid wants to work in Westminster with possibly, say, left-wing parties then, because that's what Plaid represents. So this is where it surprises me where the Lib Dems are concerned, is because the Lib Dems are not left-wing. And I'm personally disappointed in any sort of allegiance with Lib Dems.
It took a lot of us in Plaid Cymru. In fact, it took Plaid Cymru leadership, a lot of head scratching. What do we do? How do we do this? Which is better. But Plaid Cymru believe strongly. I believe strongly that it is in Wales' best interest to remain in the EU. It's a trading partner. It's a social partner. And we're an internationalist country.
Let's just move on. Let's move on for that.
Yeah, because there's a couple of questions, I think, and it's unfair not to, Paul, is to, put a couple of questions that have come in. I mean, one particular question that was quite interesting, actually, was around fox hunting. And what's Plaid's policy around fox hunting? I think Cliff Morris has said, I would like to ask Glenn the party's stance on hunting foxes, deer, hare, and if Plaid intend to close the hunting loopholes.
Well, I would certainly hope so. I am absolutely 100% against fox hunting or badger baiting or anything.
So is this discussed at Plaid's conference? Is this something that has been discussed at a conference?
It wasn't this last one, but it has been discussed before. But, anything to do with the wildlife we need to protect. I'm against fox hunting. I'm against wild animals in circuses. Thank goodness we're just getting to the stage now where those are going to be banned in Wales, like they are in Scotland. It's absolutely against any of that.
Okay, another one. Janet Roberts, and it's about women over 60. Women over 60. Who were born in the 50s are basically
lost out. Are we talking of WASPy women here?
Yeah, WASPy women.
Yeah.
Women in the 60s who were born in the 50s have lost out 6 years. And
utterly crazy.
So and I think most people would say, it sounds a bit odd that, but would Plaid recompense those women?
But again, I would love to. Again, this one is a Westminster decision. This is not something that's devolved, but it's a Westminster.
But you'll be going into Westminster if you win.
We won't be in power.
But if you win, you will have influence.
Yes,
there.
We will.
Or else.
And we have spoken up against that. You listen to our MPs in Westminster. Liz Samuel Roberts, constantly argued against this. It's wrong on every single level.
Okay, you got one out?
I was just looking at some. I mean, people they do talk about the EU. I mean, people are still talking about leave or remain, aren't they? I don't feel it's particularly, from the people I've spoken to, that it's the most prevalent thing for this election. It has been in previous MEP election and some local councils and stuff like that. But people are still saying about so. In the Vale of Clwyd, do we know what percentage voted to leave? We were in leave.
Denbighshire was 53 to 47 or something.
And I think it just goes back to what Paul was saying, and several people are saying about MPs implementing what their constituencies want them to, or is it about MPs implementing what their party?
Firstly, I'm not an MP. I'm standing to be an MP.
If you were, though.
If you were, of course.
Yeah. If I were, people would have voted for me. As part of that, they will have voted to remain in the EU. I can't emphasise this enough. For me, and for Plaid Cymru, remaining in the EU is vital to Wales' economy, our lifestyle, and the kind of country that we want to be. Trade is vital. We need the workforce. We need at the moment, because we're in Westminster, because we're controlled by Westminster, and because Westminster keeps us poor, that is why we are net gainers from the EU. Because Westminster keeps us poor. Wales is the poorest country in Western Europe. If everything was great, we wouldn't be getting the money from the EU.
What about Latvia? Latvia?
Latvia's not in Western Europe.
No.
But never mind, good try.
It is in Western Europe.
It's in Europe, but it's not in Western Europe.
Sorry, Glenn, sorry. Can I ask?
Come on, Paul.
This is worn out.
Where if we were hung parliament, and some people would like a left-wing hung parliament, not everybody. If that was a left-wing hung parliament and there was another referendum, would you vote for another referendum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we will vote for another referendum and openly campaign to remain. Seriously, I cannot emphasise. If you vote in Glenn Swingler and you vote in Plaid Cymru, you are voting as a Remain voter. We want to stay in the EU. We think that's essential to the Welsh economy. We will lose jobs. We will lose money. We will lose too much. Forget what you've read or seen on the mainstream news channels. They're talking about England mostly. In Wales, we are net gainers. That's money that we're going to lose. That's jobs that we're going to lose. Our farmers. It's over 80%.
But lots of farmers voted to leave.
Yes,
you know
they did, but they wouldn't now.
They changed their mind now.
Absolutely. All the ones I know. I mean, our farmers, for example, 80% of their income comes from the single farm payment.
So why would they have voted leave in the first place?
Yeah, they were promised rainbows and unicorns.
Okay. What are your views on same-sex marriage?
Yeah, why not?
That's fine.
Why
straightforward.
not?
That's been asked.
I believe in individuals. You be who you want to be. I don't care I don't care what your religion is, or if you don't have any religion. I don't care what colour skin you have. I don't care how you identify in terms of sexuality. I don't care whether you're tall, short. I don't care whether you speak English, Welsh, or Latvian. Seeing how you mentioned Latvia, it matters not one. Be yourself.
Okay. Bus passes.
Yes.
Should they be free for all? It's been asked.
Free for all?
Yes.
We need to do something around public transport desperately because they're mostly unaffordable. I read somewhere this morning somebody bought a single first-class ticket from Cardiff to London or somewhere and it cost them 326 quid. Okay, they could have gone standard class, couldn't they? But there you are. But we need to make public transport affordable to all, and we need to make sure that we have trains and buses that get people to where they want to be when they want to be there. Our public transport system at the moment is a disgrace. This is another thing about Westminster.
So
they cancelled electrification of the railway lines in Wales. We've got something like 10% of the rail infrastructure in the UK and Wales, and yet we've got around about 1% of the investment.
I think the roads as well, the public roads.
So we're not going to get people off the roads. We're not going to stop people's behaviour about using cars unless there are bus services that people can use.
So how would you get over the fact that if we have a different government in Wales to England, that you would have to, as in separate, as in independent.
Yeah.
How would you would have to subsidise then transport from Wales into England because you've got the rail links. So if somebody's buying a train fare from Cardiff to London,
we can't. I mean, we can't control what the French railways do, but you can get, Euro passes, can't you, for the railways? They were going to stop that, but
not in your own country.
Wales.
I don't think you can get one for your own country, Europass. You can't get using.
No, but you know what I mean. But you still can't control what goes on in another country and how they fund things and how they do things. What you can do is you can work together to come up with a system that. Okay, so if you live in.
Well, you mentioned
if you live in Llandudno, and you get cheap travel to as far as Chester, then then what England charges is down to England, isn't it? Then.
Okay.
So it would be within Wales.
You could negotiate, couldn't you?
I was going to say, because it doesn't make sense, does it? A train ticket from Cardiff to London, then you're going over the border. So how do you work out? You
do realise that throughout Europe we have the Schengen zone where there's
not
no
here.
border. Not here. No, but I'm just going to point out that you travel across borders without any checks whatsoever, and you can do it on public transport. You can find ways of making this work.
So that's an agreement between individual,
the members of the EU countries.
The
EU countries.
Okay.
You can make this work.
A range of social policies, scrapping bedroom tax, sorting out university.
Scrap bedroom tax. I'm disappointed so far. This is one thing that a bit of a bugbear with mine with Welsh Labour is that they haven't mitigated against the bedroom tax. The SNP in Scotland have done so. You don't pay the bedroom tax in Scotland. We could do that in Wales, even though that is a Westminster policy and it has to be implemented. The SNP government in Scotland use some money to mitigate that so that people don't have to pay it. We should get rid of it.
Another one from me. How far should we privatise the NHS?
No, we shouldn't privatise the NHS in any way, shape or form, ever.
Any way, shape or form. So all our computers should be developed in-house in the...
You buy your computers in, don't you? I mean, that's, like you have to get your drugs from drug makers. But actually, the actual service itself should never be privatised, should never be run by another company, should never be run. So
GPs you would nationalise and make sure that they weren't private? Because at present they're private.
Well,
they are, aren't they, and dentists...
So would you privatise the GPs?
They run as separate businesses, but they're not private, are they?
Yes, they are private.
You still, when you go to a GP, you make an appointment, you go, and it's free.
It's a private business. It's a private business.
But it's free, isn't it? The service is free.
I know, if you go and ask for something, they make profit.
I don't know how they...
That's how they work.
I'm not entirely sure how they...
Yeah, these contracts and stuff like that.
But they have contracts with the NHS.
They have to make money.
They have NHS contracts, don't they?
But they are private. So would you nationalise the doctors, the GPs, and make them part of the NHS?
Everything should be.
But it's not at present, so is that a policy?
Dentists, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you how far you would go.
Dentist is a funny one because dentist is never free at point of charge, is it? Unless you're one of the, unless you've got some sort of benefit.
So how far would?
It should be free. I think eye test should be free.
No, that wasn't the question, Glenn. The question was, how far should we nationalise, or how far should we privatise the NHS?
I personally keep it all nationalised.
So you'd have
within the public
GPs, you'd have glasses, eye care.
Go back to the 1945.
November the 22nd. We get more details on our policies when the thing comes out. But
when's it coming out? New manifesto's coming out on the 22nd.
So you can go to a GP and you can say to the GP, I've got this, and they'll say, well, we're getting on the waiting list. And if you ask and say, well, how much, how can I do it privately?
Who do the doctors charge?
The doctors charge the state.
They charge the state.
But they are private. Yeah. They are private businesses. And my question to you was how far would you privatise? How far would you privatise?
I won't privatise anything.
But
how many more times? I won't privatise.
But they are privatised now.
Yeah, but you're asking me how much more would I privatise? I wouldn't privatise it at all.
But would you keep them as private entities?
I think everything should be within the national...
Is that the policy applied?
You're going to have to wait till December the 22nd for one of those. I can't answer that one.
I'd be very surprised if
I can't answer that one now. I personally should all be within... belonging to the people.
And that's why I asked, what does that mean in practice? Yeah. What is a private NHS and what is a public NHS? The number of people asked
needs to be... These are there are some... The essential services should all belong to the people.
So will you be listening in, Glenn, to the Community Voice? Because next week we have David Jones... and James Davis. We're waiting to hear from James Davis. Week after, we've got Chris.
I try and listen
Joe.
to most weeks. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm not able to listen to all of it because of other commitments or because of work. But I try and listen most weeks to bits of it.
Have you been listening to the candidates that you're up against? This is what I'm getting at.
So far?
Yeah. Have you been...
You haven't had anybody on yet, have you?
No, but we will.
No, I mean in general. Have you been taking note of the other candidates and what their policies are?
Not really. I mean, it's, they've got their policies, we've got ours. It's not about... I know that you're having Peter Dane from the Brexit Party in, and as I've met him a couple of times, pleasant enough bloke. I've got no problems with him whatsoever. But we're not going to agree on policy, so there is probably little point in listening to what he's saying.
There's a number of people that have all said something very similar, and that is we don't trust politicians.
Quite.
That's a regular thing.
That is a regular. So why should they trust you?
Right. I'm trying to be as open and honest here as I possibly can.
But they're all great social speakers when they get to start with.
Yeah. Well,
Mugabe was a really nice guy when he started off.
Yeah. So.
Is that a comparison here?
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Glenn.
Yeah. How do you answer that sort of question? Yeah, people don't trust politicians now. I accept that 100%. And they don't trust their MPs. I accept that. But how can I say, all I could do would be sit here and say, oh, you can trust me. Yeah? You have to judge somebody on what they do. You have to judge somebody on how they vote when they're in Parliament. You have to judge somebody by what actions they take. Now, I can show you my actions and what I've voted for and against in county council level. I voted against the budget decrease. I voted against 2% budgets on schools to cut. I voted... I'm on a group that's looking at single-use plastic in Denbighshire County Council. That's still in the sort of like the closed-door sections. Can't say too much, but I have taken absolutely no expenses whilst being a Denbighshire County Council. Zero. I don't use... county councillors get 10% off in a certain coffee chain in Ruthin. I don't take my 10% discount. Yeah, I'm not a rich person. I struggle to pay my bills at the end of the month like a lot of other people do. But I don't take these things. If I could get a free flu jab, I don't get a free flu jab. Yeah? If other people that I represent can't get these things, I'm not getting them either. Yeah? Okay. And I can only go on my record. And you can check my county council record to see if I've claimed any expenses, because I've not claimed one single penny. I will admit that I've had... I take coffee out of a free coffee machine in council offices, but I'm also one of those pushing to get rid of those coffee machines out of council offices for environmental reasons, yeah?
So what sort of...
We've got 3 minutes left. 2 minutes left.
Where people are registered to vote, then,
yes.
Have you actually gathered from public perceptions at the minute whether what sort of balance we've got on more people and more people keen to vote now because they feel more passionately, or people being disengaged?
I think more people are engaged than ever, especially the younger ones. The people that I've been speaking to, I'm plugging it here, is about having a strong voice for Wales. We've been sidelined long enough. We are ignored. We're not told what goes on in Wales because mainstream media likes to keep it all about London and the South East. This is about getting a strong voice for Wales, for the Vale of Clwyd, and making sure that we are no longer ignored. And that's the best that we can really do, because and the response to that is, you're absolutely right. We are ignored in Wales. We don't get the money that we need in Wales. Doesn't matter where you come from. People that live in the Vale of Clwyd know that they're not getting the benefits they need, the pay they need, they're not getting the services they want because cuts keep coming and coming and coming, and there will be more cuts this year.
So you're totally against austerity? Plaid would never ever be
So you'd spend lots of money then?
Yeah.
You'd spend lots of money?
It's about spending money in the right places and spending it in... we've seen all these pledges in this election. There's trillions being spent on all sorts of things from all the parties, and not one single one of them is about Wales.
Okay.
One.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Really good, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with Community Voice next week.
With David Jones and hopefully James Davis.
We'll have a few. Thank you.